this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this pointed pendant necklace with little clusters of groupings of beads on the interior portion here, and it turns out really pretty. This is with the Deep Sea Jewels treasure bag. However, you can do this technique with almost any type of bead. You just modify it slightly and you can do this. You can use any pendant you'd like, though these pointed pendants are usually fairly easy to find, so you may have some in your stash. So don't feel left out if you didn't get the treasure bag, because like I said, this is a techniques video and it works with most everything. Let me get you in closer here. I want you to see the very front portion here and the little clusters that we make. This turns out really pretty, hangs beautifully on the neck. I have made it a 22-inch necklace, so it's a longer one that will work well with the sweater or something like that. You can make it any length you'd like. You just adjust the back portion. So let's go ahead and look and see what it takes to make this particular project. Okay, for this project today, we will be using some of the beads from the Deep Sea Jewels treasure bag. However, these beads can be substituted with a 6mm round of any kind that you would like to use. So don't worry about that. If you do not have the treasure bag, this is a techniques video and you can use it with other beads that you do have. So we'll be using this strand that was in the Deep Sea Jewels treasure bag. It's a flat, faceted, round bead, and like I said, you can use a 6mm round instead if you do not have this strand, or anything that is similar in shape and size. Then we're going to be using the big pointed pendant. Now I know a lot of us have these, and I've put a lot of them in stash bags and in pendant boxes and things like that. So if you have bought any of those, you have one of these. Plus you may just have one in your stash. They're fairly common. You can use any pendant that you would like that has a rather large bail on it. And then we are going to be using some soft flex beading wire, and you need fine for this. So let me get you in close so you can see the diameter of this. This is 0.014 inch or 0.36mm. Get it in there so you can see. It doesn't necessarily have to be soft flex, but it needs to be a fine diameter. Then we're going to be using some size 2 Beading crimp tubes, and I always suggest that you use Beading because they work really well. So I am going to use it in this gunmetal tone simply because I am using platinum type metal, so I am going to use this color. It blends a little bit better, and I'm going to use 4 of them. Then I'm going to add some 8/0 and 11/0 seed beads. These are Toho. Toho is important because it has a large hole and it'll go over your wires really well. So I'm using the nickel 8/0 and 11/0 in the Toho line. I'm adding to the treasure bag some 8x6 rondelles. So you can use any color you like. I'm going to use the opalite tone since that's what I have in my pendant, but this would be really good in any color because these beads are neutral. You can do blue, red, green, anything you would like in your 8x6 rondelle. And then you will need, I'm using 2 small metal beads with a little bit bigger hole. It's probably about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters in size. Just for the end of my necklace, it makes a nice finish. It's not necessary, but I'm going to use 2 of those, and I'm adding those from my stash. I'm going to use a toggle clasp. You can use one that's in your bag. I'm using this stainless steel one because it matches my beads really well. But you can use the one that's in your bag too. Plus this is a little bit bigger, and I'm making this necklace for a friend of mine, so she likes to have bigger toggles. So that's why I'm doing that. And that is what we will be using. So go ahead and gather your things together and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut 4 pieces of your beading wire 30 inches long. Now I know that seems like a lot, but we're going to double them. We're going to use 2 for each side of the necklace and double it. That will give us 4 strands. I'm also making my necklace 11 inches long on either side, so it'll be a 22-inch necklace. So you can adjust that according to the length you want to make. You want to make sure that you leave yourself at least 4 to 5 inches extra so that you can have extra room for crimping. And also these beads, the way we're putting them on, are going to puff out a little bit and take some room on the wire. So that's why we're cutting it the way we're cutting it. And you can watch what I have left over and adjust accordingly. So cut yourself to start 2 strands 30 inches long. We're going to do one side of the necklace. And let me move some of my mess back here. And I have already made one side. So let me show you what it looks like, and I will make the other side on camera. That way I will have both of them done when we are finished here. Let me readjust a little bit here. So this is 11 inches long from here to here. And we are going to use 4 strands in the beginning and then reduce them down to 1. Now I'm going to start, let me turn it this way so that we're going to do both sides exactly the same way. So I've already done one side. I'm going to show you this side, and then you can do the other side exactly the same way. Put your 2 wires together, put one end together so that you can center them on here pretty evenly. Once you have your 2 ends together, string them through the bail on the pendant, just like this, and then bring all 4 together on the end here. And let's see if we can pull this nice and tight so that I can get nice neat ends. And then once my ends are together, because my wires aren't exactly even, I will cut them down to where they're pretty even on the ends here so that I can put them through my beads a little easier. So you lose a little bit there too. So now I have them like this, and you may want to wait until you slide your first bead on too, because they're kind of loose otherwise. Then we're going to take an 8/0 seed bead, and we're going to put all 4 of these strands through the 8/0. Again, using a Toho is going to help because they have wider holes, and you want to be able to put all 4 of your beading wires through that seed bead, and then you're just going to draw it down. And it's not going to stay in place. That's fine. Put your ends back together nice and neat, and grab an 8x6 rondelle and put all 4 strands through the rondelle. And again, this isn't all going to stay until we start putting our beads on nice and neat. Now, since I'm doing my second strand, I have to make sure that my other strand is to the side and I'm not crossing them. But you just want to make sure you go to one side of your pendant, and then you're going to begin by beading all 4 strands the same way. So we're going to separate the 4 strands so we can find them easier. Don't pull on them too much because then you're going to get your even ends uneven. So just separate them so you can find each strand. Once you've done that, then you're going to pick up one strand and you're going to put onto it 4 11/0 seed beads. And then you're going to put on one of your flat round or 6mm round, whatever you're using, and drop it down. Then you're going to pick up an 8/0, and you're going to pick up another one of your flat beads here. And then 4 more 11/0 seed beads. Now, go ahead and do all 4 of your strands just like that, and we'll be back. Okay, so all 4 of my strands now have my beads on it. They're all exactly the same, and I'm just going to grab a hold of them and just kind of push them down. And I want to make sure that my pendant is not twisting and doing weird things here. And I have them all basically together now. And I'm going to take the ends of my wires, put them back together, and I am going to slide down an 8x6 rondelle. And just push it down to those beads. Now I'm going to take each individual wire and just give it a little tiny tug just to make sure they're all down nice and neat. And then I have to arrange the tip here to give myself just a little bit of room so that the wires move on my pendant. And we'll adjust that a couple of times, just like this. Now I'm going to separate my wires again, and we're going to do another grouping, each wire exactly the same, and I'll show you what the grouping is, and then we'll go off camera and do all 4 of them. So untangle all of your wires so that they're nice and neat and available to you. And then you're going to pick up 4 11-0 seed beads. And then you're going to pick up a flat round, or whatever you're using, and then an 8-0, and then another of your flat rounds here, and then an 8-0, and then another of your flat rounds. So now we have 3 on instead of 2 this time, with 2 8-0s in between. Then we're going to pick up 4 11-0 seed beads. Just like this, and drop it down. Now you're going to do all 4 of the strands that way. So 4 11-0s, 6mm round, or whatever you're using, an 8-0, 6mm round, 8-0, 6mm round, or your flat beads. You get the gist. And then 4 11-0s. And let's go ahead and do all 4 strands exactly the same way, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have done all 4 of my strands with the 3 bigger beads in the middle. And again, I'm going to put my ends together the best I can. And they get a little uneven. Just push them together on the ends the best you can, like this. And then grab another 8x6 rondelle. Push it through. And then pull each wire individually so that you can tighten this all together. Come here, wires. Jeez, there. And just a little tiny tug, and then again adjust down at the bottom. Especially if you're doing your second end, you can see I'm trying to make sure that this doesn't twist. And I still have enough room in my loop to keep some movement. And then now we have a grouping of 4 of the 3 beads here. We're going to make a grouping just like we did here so that we have some symmetry. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to pick up 4 11-0 seed beads onto our wires. And then we're going to do a grouping of 2 of the bigger beads and 8-0s. So we're going to pick up the bigger bead, and then we're going to pick up the 8-0, and then our bigger bead, and then we're going to pick up 4 of our 11-0s. And we're going to do that on all 4 strands. So go ahead and do that, and we'll be back. And again, I have all 4 of my strands beaded with 2 of my bigger beads and my seed beads, just like I showed you. And again, we're going to pick up another 8x6 rondelle. and put all 4 strands into the rondelle, push it down, and then again take each of your wires and just gently tug on them. Then again, I'm going to adjust down here on my pendant, just making sure that everything as I construct this is going to stay in line so that I don't end up with something I don't want in the end. Now we are going to reduce this down and bead this way. So what we're going to do is we are going to, again, if you need to, you can trim your ends down so that they're more even, just the tiniest bit. And then you're going to take all 4 and you're going to put them through an 8/0 seed bead. Drag it down. And then you're going to grab another rondelle and put all 4 through the rondelle. And we're going to continue doing this, and the way I have done it is I'm going to show you this one so you can see. I have done 2 rondelles with 8/0s in between, and then I'm doing one of my flat round beads, and then 2 rondelles, 8/0s in between, an 8/0, then a flat rondelle, an 8/0 or a flat 6mm round. And we're just going to continue doing this until we have reached the length that we want. So what I have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21 beads. And like I said, I'm doing it in the pattern of 2 rondelles and then one of my flat rounds, 2 rondelles, flat round, with 8/0s in between all of them, and then I'm just ending on one of my flat rounds. So go ahead and string your entire side and we'll be back. Okay, so I have strung both sides exactly the same. Now you can make yours as long or as short as you would like and just modify it to achieve the length that you want. At this point, you are going to want to make sure that each one of your wires is nice and snug. So pull on each one and then look at your groupings. Make sure your groupings aren't crossed or weird. Arrange them at this point if you need to. And then again, make sure that your loop on the bottom has some movement around the pendant. It isn't twisted, doing anything weird. And then you are going to grab your ends again. And at this point, I am going to trim my ends just to make them a little easier to put through my crimp tube. I'm just going to trim them again, just a tiny bit, make them all flush, and then I am going to push them together and grab one of my size 2 crimp beads. You can use a size 3 also for this. It'd be a little bit easier, but 2 works fine. So I'm just going to put them through. I got 3 through, so I'm going to drop the seed bead or the crimp bead down a little bit, and then I'm going to put my last one through. That way I can get all of them through, and then I'll just straighten it out. Make sure they don't twist even when you're putting them on down here. Make sure that your wires stay fairly next to each other and not really twisted, or your beads won't slide down nice. And you'll get some twisting down lower in your groupings of beads, and you don't want that. So now I've got my crimp bead on. I'm going to bring you in close here. I'm going to grab my crimping tool. Now I've got them all together. I'm making sure everything looks good. There's no slack. There's no issues down at the bottom of my necklace. My loop is fine around my pendant. And I'm going to, in the second divot of my crimping tool, I'm going to place the crimp bead. Don't worry about wires parallel and all that. Just squeeze. And now I have created a little fold in that crimp tube. Now I used that second divot first, the one closest to the handle. Now I'm using the one closest to the tip of the crimping tool, placing that crimp bead in sideways so that the two little tubes that were formed on either side of the fold I created when I crimped are now touching the crimping tool, and I'm going to squeeze just like that. Now, I'm sorry, my voice is going away again. Let me get a drink, I'm sorry. Now I'm going to grab my four ends, make sure this is gripped nice and firmly, nothing's moving, everything is together well. I'm going to grab my wires and I'm going to find the two that lay most center and nice together, and I'm going to put them aside. And I'm going to take the other two, and with my crimping, or with my flush cutter, I'm going to get as close to that crimp tube as I can, pulling on the wires, and I'm going to cut them down. Now I just have two wires. You can actually reduce it down to one if you want, but I don't like repairing things, so if I can leave them stronger, I leave them stronger. And two will go just fine through my crimp tube. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to drop down one of my little beads. Make sure I have the same. Yeah. I'm going to drop down one of these little metal beads just as a finishing touch for the end here, and also so that I can slide my wires through when I do my crimping and hide them. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Now I've got that bead on, I'm going to pick up another crimp tube and put both wires through it. Then I'm going to pick up my other end of my clasping here, and I'm going to go through the loop. Then I'm going to go through the crimp tube and the big bead that I put on, the metal bead. And that's why it has a little bit bigger hole. I can slide through. I'm going to slide all this down tight, actually as tight as I can get it. Pull on both wires so that they're both nice and neat inside your loop here. And don't worry about giving any slack at this point. Just pull it down tight. Then go to the very bottom of that bead with your flush cutters and cut that off. And then very gently, because you don't have a lot of play here, you're just going to push down on that crimp tube and pull on the clasp just a little bit, giving yourself some more room in the loop so that you have some play for your clasp. That also draws the excess wire up into this bead and you won't see it. I'm going to look and see how big I made that loop. I made it a little bit bigger than this one. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to grab my crimping tool. And again, I'm not going to worry too much about my wires being parallel or anything like that because I have two wires in there. I'm going to place the crimp tube centered in the first divot on my crimping tool, and I'm going to squeeze. Now I have a nice fold in the center of that, and I'm going to place in the first divot on my crimping tool closest to the tip. I'm going to place that in sideways now so that those two little tubes touch the crimping tool, and I'm going to squeeze again. And now I have a really nice little crimp. I have double wires here, and I've got them secured. Now I'm going to back off. Let me clean up my bead mat a little here. And I now have my necklace. It turned out really pretty. I love doing little groupings like this. I used to do this all the time when I did a lot more stringing than bead weaving. Now I do more bead weaving than stringing. Well, not so much because I do a lot of stringing for this channel, but these always turn out really pretty. You can use a lot of different types of beads to do this with. You can use bicones, you can use rounds, you can use fire polish, you can use cuboid, it doesn't matter. As long as they fit nicely next to each other, and that all depends on your seed beads down at the bottom. You may need to use a little more, a little less. That's what allows them to lie next to each other. So this is what this looks like, and I think it turned out really pretty. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please hit the like button for me and consider subscribing and the notification bell so that you will know when I put out another tutorial. And I'm going to go rest my voice. So sorry about that. See you next time. Bye-bye.